The machines are taking over. The dire warning from the Terminator series. John Connor was the hero of that series. And you might think of me as John, perhaps. John warned us that the machines had taken over on the planet Earth. Starnet had become sentient. It had decided that it no longer needed human beings to help it work. So from an ecological point of view, could say that these robots had decided that their species wanted to be the top dog, and they needed no other species to support them. So ecologically, they created a system that was out of balance. This ecosystem has become the reality that we have today. The idea that technology, or robots, machines, I'll lump them all together, have taken over is around us wherever we want to look. We are already at the mercy of the machines. We are already their slaves. And so we can see this if we start to really look. I mean, these are really very obvious things. In the planet that we call Earth, the ecosystem, as I will refer to it, we have situation like our resources are very finite. In that little bubble in the middle of space, we have limited, very limited resources, and we're gobbling them up like there's no tomorrow. There's no reduction in the use of our resources, and most of them are being poured into some form of technology. We have very limited habitat in which other species than machines can survive and thrive. We have biodiversity that is failing at an also very alarming rate. Our atmosphere is being degraded to the point where scientists are telling us that we're approaching tipping points that are irreversible changes to the actual air that we breathe. This is amazing stuff. These things are actual, they're fact, they're there, they're in front of us all to see. And for me, they are all side effects of the technological success that we have fostered, we have enabled. So we are very responsible for them. So I'm going to talk today really about technology in its broadest sense, all of the things that we have done, all the things that man has made, the man-made interventions in the natural world. I see technology on this side and humans and nature on that as part of a natural world. So if I say to you that this ecology is out of balance, how do we even begin to approach that scale of problem? How do we balance this ecology? We need very much to consider the human side of it, the human and natural side. We understand that. But let's face it, technology is very cool. It's very funky, shiny, it beeps. It has lights, all sorts of lovely things, and it makes our lives so much easier. And then we have, on the other side, the most sentient species on the planet, human beings. We're lumpy, hairy, smelly, do some strange things in the bathroom. But this is what it means to be human. How do we equate this really funky technology thing to us? How are we going to balance this equation with these two things? And remembering that humans are only representing the natural world. We are a species of animal. So we need to do one really key thing. We love our technology. We think it's wonderful. We valorize it. We adore it. We need to do the same thing about being human. We have to realize how incredible we are, how amazing we are, not only as a species, but a system, as an event. So about how do we do that? What does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be a human being? One of the things that really stuck out was a lot of different writers and different thinkers and philosophers and so forth have thought about humans in the terms of care. Funny little four-letter word, care, C-A-R-E. In Latin, they refer to it as cura. In German, it was sorge. But in different languages, it doesn't really matter. The concept was this idea of care. We are care. And there's a lot more to it, which I really can't go into it. I've written a chapter in a book. You can read that later some other time. But the point is that we are care. So I'm going to be referring to humans in the process of being as care. So I'll refer to this often. And so I'm now wrapping this together into what I'm going to talk about, which is this ecology of care. So to balance our technological interests, we're going to have an ecology based on human beings as representatives of the natural world. So what does it mean to be human? This is a human. Doesn't look like anyone we know, I realise that. Doesn't look much like me. But I've now become familiar with this idea that this is all of that reading, all of that understanding, and put together in one place. And I'm going to try to take you through this little diagram, very simple, very simplistic diagram, with an X, Y, Z and T axis, to help you to understand the key goal of this project is to understand the mystery and the wonder and the amazingness of human beings. How amazing each and every one of you are. And I hope by the end of this, you will agree you are. So I'm going to start with what I think is probably one of the most important of all of the axes. It's the living axis. It's the one that wraps up the whole lot, I guess, in a way. And it starts with consciousness. Does anyone know what that is? If you did, you'd probably be one of the few and only people in the world that do. Nobody understands consciousness. A hell of a lot of people are trying to figure it out. I can tell you that. They want to put it into machines. But consciousness is something that we all have that really super duper defines us as a human being. We're different to animals. Animals will have a different kind of consciousness and so forth, but we are conscious and conscious of our consciousness. Because we have that, we then become aware. We have an awareness of those things that are around us. We are aware of other people, other things, and so forth. Because we're conscious, we become aware. Once we become aware, then we have to then act. We feel compelled to act. Even sitting there doing nothing is an action that you choose. So we respond in some kind of way. There's two key ways in which that I would like to talk about response. The first one is that response ability. It's the things that we learn, the ways in which we can conduct our actions or ourselves in the world, the way in which we interact with the world. So that's a response ability. It is simply the mechanics of responding. Responsibility is a lot more complicated. Responsibility is our moral and ethical stance in the world, the way in which we enact ourselves in the world from a moral and ethical stance. What do we judge as being right, wrong, and so forth? A really important part to remember is that all of this takes place in an ecology. And we tend to forget that our place in the ecology is just as important as every other atom in the ecology. We're no more important than the beast in the field, the fish in the ocean, all of those sorts of things. We all have a part to play. And every single response that we make, every responsible act that we conduct has an effect, like the butterfly effect, on the entire ecology. So we are responsible for every single thing we do and therefore responsible for our ecology. That's important. I think that's amazing that we actually have all of that going on. Every day we have experiences, and these experiences accumulate over our lifetime and inform our mode of living. Experiences are an incredibly detailed and complicated thing in themselves. What the hell is an experience? It's like consciousness. We all have them, but we don't really know what they are. We can talk about a specific instance, but we can't say what is experience. This is what it is. At its most basic level, it is about senses, affect, emotions, cognition, and context. So senses are more complicated than just simply the five senses. We know them very simply. But they also take in mysterious things such as sensing and a sense of. That's sixth sense kind of spooky stuff. Affect is an amazing thing. We all have emotions. Emotions are incredibly complicated, incredibly important. the range of possible emotions is intense. The emotions that I'm feeling right now are very intense. But I know that I'm alive, I'm living, I'm a human being, I can be conscious of the fact that I am having emotions. How amazing is that? And I can alter those emotions perhaps with different interactions and so forth. But I have them, and they're vitally important beyond just flight or fight, that sort of. And context is a very simple thing in many ways. It's just the interaction that we have between space and time in a particular way, and relationships we have with space and time. So in this place, in this space, we have a particular context. And the relationships we have between each other and next to each other and so forth are all important and help to establish the experience. So experience informs our mode of living throughout our lives, and it changes the way in which we respond. So it's a constant growing and building process. And that's what forms our way of interacting with the world, which brings us to projection. This is our way of interacting with the world. And we begin with the way in which we interact with ourselves. Vitally important that we understand that what we have learned and all of the things that we've built over the years in terms of our mode of living, our experience and so forth, filter into and help us to understand ourselves. And we have to understand that first before we can actually do anything with anybody else. So self is vitally important. Selfishness is actually a good thing. We have to understand ourselves first before we can actually interact properly with others. And if we interact with others, we can interact with other people or other things. And this helps to establish, again, who our self is. We know ourself through our interactions with others. If there was nobody else on the planet with us, we wouldn't probably know who the hell the self was. So we desperately need other people. So self, others, and then the world. So here, right now, your world, each person's world, and my world are intersecting. So in this projection, I'm projecting myself to you, interacting with you, the other, using these others here to create a meeting of our worlds. So that's very important. So it's a kind of a layered effect. We have context and immediate experience, we have the worlds in which we engage, and the greater ecology in which we all live. So this is a kind of meta-contextual story. So lastly, but not the least, I can tell you, is time. We understand time. We have a watch, and we have top clocks and numbers and so forth, but that is a technology. It's not actually an essence of our life. We are born, we are going to die because we have consciousness, we know we're going to die. We don't know when, and that is so important because it changes the flavour of our entire lives. If we knew when we were going to die or that we weren't going to die, we would change exactly everything we did. So we need to know that we're going to die. We don't need to know when. Who wants to know that? But it's very important that we have this understanding that our life is going to be a continuum. Because the key point from this axis is that we know we have time. Whatever amount that is, we're conscious and aware that we have time. So we have a responsibility then to see what will we do with that time. It's totally compelling. You're conscious, you're aware, you respond, you've got time. What am I going to do with it? We talk about time spent or spending time. And that's because we don't get any back. Once it's gone, it's gone. So we have to be very careful what we do with it. And, we talk about wasting time and all these sorts of things. So time is an incredibly valuable part of being a human. And it's part of understanding what a human is, that we have to deal with time. But this is a human in the process of being, and this is care. So care is a human in the process of being, and this is how we can begin to map it. Okay, so back to this big problem that I painted before. We've got all these other issues in the world that technology, I'm saying, is largely responsible for, but how are we going to balance that? I'm saying that the kind of logic that helped us to build this incredible technological empire is a very linear Newtonian kind of logic. It's a 1 + 1 = 2 orientation. And we need to become a hell of a lot more sophisticated in our thinking if we're going to tackle problems of this scale. We simply cannot apply technology, apply the same kind of thinking, and expect that things are going to change. They just won't. But we see a different kind of logic all around us. We are part of the natural world. So we kind of have to understand if we're going to do something different, we have to do something with a natural kind of thinking, a more natural logic, perhaps a logic of care. That's us, because we're the responsible ones. We're the only ones we're the only sentient species on the planet that can actually do this. So we need to act and do something about what we know we have to do. The framework for an ecology of care is, from our point of view, a starting point. It's not a defined, this is a human, this is the equation. It's a way of understanding human beings in this kind of different fuzzy logic kind of way. The machines have taken over. I understand that. But we do not have to give up. We do not have to accept it. We can do something about it. We have to face up to the fact that we have built a kind of a monster, but we can address that. We can do something about that. If only we can honour and accept that we are human, and human is okay. We don't have to be machines. We don't have to be extensions of the machine world. We have to be human, and that's the secret. That's the only way we're going to think our way out of this. Technology is not going to save us. So, I'd ask people in their everyday life and their work to say a couple of things. 2 very hard questions. Is what I'm doing helping the technological world, a technological species to thrive, or is it helping humans and nature? Can I do something a different way? Is what I am doing, can it be done a different way so that I can actually foster a human, a natural ecology? Our friend in the Terminator said, the future is up to us. I think he should have said, our future is up to us. Human beings' future is up to human beings and not technology. We need to change this balance of the ecological balance. We need to be able to do that with care, and that is human beings. So we need an ecology of care. Thank you.